Good morning, guys, and welcome to the Tuesday, May 28th edition of the MMAOB Daily Show. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin. Going to take you through the latest news in the world of MMA, and there really isn't too much to talk about today. Just like yesterday, there hasn't been that much crazy news in the world of MMA lately, but there are some stuff I want to talk about. First and foremost, you can find this podcast on YouTube under the MMA Oddsbreaker channel. That's the main website right for MMAOddsbreaker.com. Also, ShowDog.com, MMAnews.com, MMARings.net, BJPen.com, and follow me on Twitter at MMAdamMartin. So we'll just get right into what news there is out there. First and foremost, Uriah Faber is playing a comeback. I'm not surprised. How long do retirements last in MMA? They don't last that long. Very few guys actually stay retired in the sport. Very few guys retire coming off wins. And Uriah Faber is just another guy that's, a former world champion in WEC and a guy who had a lot of success in the UFC. Not a champion. Went on to win. One of the few fighters to go on to win. Beat Brad Pitt in his last fight in 2016. I thought that was going to be it for him, but now he's coming back. He's 40 years old now. The UFC apparently has offered him a fight, I believe, in Sacramento. That's in July, so he'll be fighting again in 2 months. I'm not sure if that's the main event or not. I hope not. I don't think he deserves the main event slot. Having said that, of course, he's huge in Sacramento. That's his hometown. Team Alpha Male's there, so it could possibly be a main event spot for him. Considering it's 2 months away, there's a possibility this fight's at 145 and not 135, and I think that does open up some options for him. We've previously seen him at featherweight. He fought Frankie Edgar back in 2015, lost the decision there. I saw someone throw out Cub Swanson as a potential name. I think that makes a lot of sense, to be honest. Cub coming off 4 straight losses. He's still a big name, though. He's still a ranked fighter. So I think Uriah Faber versus Cub Swanson's a very good fight in the regards that it's two guys that are, I believe, on a decline. Of course, we haven't seen Faber in a while, but Swanson hasn't looked good lately. So two older guys, two WEC veterans, two names in the sport. I do think that makes sense, especially considering Faber's ties to Sacramento, Swanson's ties to California in general. So that fight could make sense. But if he goes to 135, of course, there's some matchups there that could make sense. Of course, Uriah would want a top 5 guy, but I don't think he deserves it. Just looking at who's available right now, you have Champ obviously not exist anymore, and TJ Dillashaw. That fight would have been cool one of these days, but I don't know if that'll ever happen. But we got Moraes, he's booked, Sunsel's booked, Sterling's booked, Munoz booked, Cruz probably hurt still, Garbrandt's booked, Garbrandt's not booked. He's not going to fight in that card. Apparently, Ali Abdelaziz said that Garbrandt was offered the main event spot. Not sure who he's going to be against, but he won't be fighting on that card because he needs to rest his brain. That's what Ali said. So good for him to take some time off. That Munoz knockout was brutal, and he's been knocked out a couple times now. So Garbrandt is taking some time off. Rivera's booked, Sanhagen's booked, Yan's booked. John Lineker's out there still. I do think John Lineker would probably destroy Faber at this point in his career, but that would be, I guess, a decent fight. And then that's pretty much it. John Dodson, I guess, is potentially another guy that could fight him, but I don't know if that's big enough to be a main event. So I think you are looking at guys in the featherweight division. I was wrong before when I said Swanson's ranked. He's actually dropped out of the rankings, and I don't think he should be ranked. So that's a good decision by the rankers there, considering the 4 straight losses. But yeah, I'm curious to see who they match him up against. I'm assuming we'll see this news in the next couple of days because Faber, he's been very vocal the last couple of days and the last couple of weeks just about his comeback. He's accepted a fight now. He will be fighting on that Sacramento card, 99% likely. So we'll wait and see who he's going to fight. That was one of the most notable things. Brian Caraway also was released by the UFC recently. That kind of flew under the radar. Also, Abel Trujillo was released by the UFC. That kind of flew under the radar. Both guys obviously haven't won in a while. They're both going to be competing for the Battlefield FC2 promotion in Macau in July, Saturday, July 27th in Macau. So there's actually some decent fighters on that card. Will Brooks is fighting Abel Trujillo. That's a pretty good fight. Will Brooks, he's not the most exciting guy, but I am surprised that PFL didn't bring him back for the second season. He went 2-0-1 in PFL. Obviously flamed out of the UFC. He had a great record in Bellator, but kind of feel bad for this guy. He was killing in Bellator, took a shot and go to the UFC to become a world champion in the UFC, and didn't work out for him, and PFL didn't work out for him. Now he's fighting for Battle FC2. I really hope these guys pay them because they've had some issues paying their fighters in the past, so I hope these guys get paid. But yeah, Will Brooks coming off a draw against Rasheed Magomedov, taking out Abel Trujillo there. And again, Trujillo hasn't won in a while either. His last win was in 2016 against Rinaldi. Back-to-back losses against Makdessi and Vick in the UFC. But yeah, Brian Caraway, I mean, on one hand, yeah, this guy had to save his job already in the UFC. Dana White, I don't think necessarily liked him that much. He's coming off back-to-back losses against Munoz and Stamen, so that kind of sucks. But he also beat Sterling, Wineland, a couple other guys like Gagnon, who's in the UFC. So, Brian Caraway is actually one of the most underrated bantamweights, I think, ever probably. But he never really had that personality. And I think once Misha Tate left the UFC, they didn't see as much value in him. So it's unfortunate because I think Brian's a great guy, and it sucks that he's on the UFC anymore. But again, hopefully he gets paid by this promotion. He's fighting this guy Raja Shippen, 18-11-1 record. He's on a 4-fight win streak. Fighting for smaller organizations. Never really fought anyone decent except for Cal Uno back in 2014, the former UFC fighter. Lost by submission there, actually. That's pretty much the only notable guy he's ever fought. So this should be an easy win for Brian Caraway to get back on the winning ways. And who knows? Maybe the UFC could bring him back one day. Maybe Bellator could sign him. I think he'd be decent there as well. PFL possibly in the future. Brian's a great guy. And again, I hope he gets signed by one of these big promotions. And who else is on this card? DJ Linderman's fighting. Ben Wall's fighting, former UFC guy, against Mushin Kabri, and who else? Jan Finney's on the card too. She a former cyborg victim in Strikeforce. Ricardo Toloni, a former Bellator fighter. So they have some big names on this card, actually. But again, they had some issues with paying their fighters, and that bothers me. So these guys are, they're taking a risk, and I really hope they pay them, because their first event back in 2017, we know what Sarah Kaufman said, and Jessica Rose Clark. They had a fight in that card, and I don't think either of them were paid. They might have been paid now recently, but like for at least a year or something, they weren't paid anything. So definitely a sketchy promotion, at least in the past. Maybe they're under some new management or ownership, but again, hope these guys get paid what they're worth, because they're all MMA fighters. They work hard and they put their bodies on the line. The only other thing that I was going to mention was Day Andre Pederneiras. He came out and talked about Jose Aldo's fight against Alexander Volkanovski in UFC 237 in Brazil. I actually wrote an article at bjpen.com, so I'll check that out there. Basically, what Day said was he's never seen Aldo freeze before in a fight, and he said he froze. And he said Aldo admitted he froze in the fight. Day said he tried to motivate him, but he couldn't do it. They also said that they thought they should have lost a closer decision on the scorecards. I don't know. I mean, I tend to agree that maybe it was not at 30-27, all three cards. Maybe it could have been 29-28. That's, I think, kind of how I scored it. But still, there's no doubt Volkanovski won that fight. So I don't understand really what he's saying there about the decision. I think the decision was fine in that Volkanovski won. Maybe, again, the scorecards were a bit wider than they should have been. But, Aldo just had a flat performance in that fight. And actually, I was looking at his record. That was the first time he ever lost by decision. So he's only been finished the other 4 times he lost in his career, 3 times by KO, to Holloway twice, TKO actually, and then McGregor obviously got knocked out. And then earlier in his career, before the WEC, he got submitted by Luciano Azevedo. So that's the only times he ever lost in his career, never by decision. It's the first time. So I think we will see Aldo back. Pederneiras says he will be back. He will fight again. And I think that when he does come back, he'll be a lot more motivated to get back on the win track. Just like the fights with Stevens and McCann, which was the kind of performance I expected for him. But again, this is MMA. This is sports. Guys have flat nights. They have bad nights. It happens. Very rarely happens to Aldo, but this is one of those times where he just didn't get it done. So it was kind of cool to see Pederneiras go out there and just admit it, not making really any excuses. Just say, hey, the guy had a bad night. He admits it himself. Also, he talked about the fact that it was in Brazil. And by the way, that was crazy. Again, I was there for that fight. Insane. Pederneiras talked about how the crowd may have played a factor, just so much pressure. Aldo said that, according to Dede anyways, that's not true. But Dede said that, yes, he believes that the pressure of fighting for his hometown and getting a finish, that it might have, made him freeze a little bit. So that's unfortunate. But again, Aldo will be back. He's only 32, by the way. I was surprised when I read that. He's been around forever, obviously. 32 years old. So he's still got plenty of miles in his tank, I think. Not like he's losing his scrubs, he's losing the top guys in the world. So like Holloway, McGregor, and now Volkanovski, not bad losses at all. So he'll be back. Again, I wrote the article over at bjpen.com, so check that out. That's pretty much it. There really, like I said, wasn't too much news out there. Also, I wrote an article at MMARatings.net, but just about some fighters that could be cut. you can check that out. It should be posted soon. I just looked through the roster, but maybe some veteran guys that are losing streaks. Like, not to spoil the article or anything, I want you guys to read it, but obviously we all know BJ Penn, 7 straight losses. That's a set of UFC records. So I would say he's going to be released. I mean, at this point, I've talked about his ties to Bellator. If they release him, Rich Chow and Scott Coker will probably sign him, but 7 straight losses, hard to keep a guy around with that kind of many losses. Also, I mentioned Carlos Condit is another guy in that article. 5 straight losses. Again, former interim champion, very exciting fighter in the past, but very flat performances lately. Been finished a lot on the ground. He's another guy that could be released. So again, the UFC is going to have to make some tough decisions in the next couple of weeks and months because the Contender Series is starting next month. There will be many fighters signed to the UFC. They need to open up roster spots. There's not new cards coming. The cards are set for the rest of the year. They have so many fighters on the roster. There's like, 600, 700 fighters on the roster now? It's crazy. Too many fighters, no doubt about it. So guys are going to get cut. If you're on a losing streak, you're going to get cut. That's the truth. And if you're on a winning streak, you can get cut. I didn't mention that in the article, but I'll get an example. A guy like Arjun Bowler, he's on a win streak, but he's butted heads with the promotion about his contract, and I believe he might think his value is worth more than what the UFC believes. He could be a guy that's not necessarily cut because he's coming off a win, but he could just be, released from his contract to go and sign with another promotion like Bellator or PFL, even though he's coming off a win. So I don't even know if being on a win streak saves you right now. I just think it depends on your fighting style, which we saw with Elias Theodore. Of course, he was coming off a loss, but also just the way that the UFC perceives their value, your value to the company. So definitely it's going to be interesting in the next few months and next few weeks at least, for sure, because we're going to see guys get cut. Again, Brian Carey, April Trill, that kind of came out of nowhere that they were released recently, and now they've signed with other promotions. So that's definitely something to keep in mind going forward. And that's about it, guys. I think that's it for today. As far as this podcast goes, I will be back a little bit later, around 11, 12, doing a podcast with Cole Shelton from SureDog.com, breaking down the UFC Sweden card. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I'll be back, like I said, in a couple hours. Until then, follow me on Twitter at MMAdammartin, SureDog.com, MMAOddsbreaker.com, BJPenn.com, MMAratings.net, MMAnews.com. Subscribe to this channel. Still working on the iTunes thing. There's some issues in the back end that honestly, it's pretty tough to fix right now. So we're going to work on that. I'll try again. I'm trying to get my best to get it on iTunes, but for now it's on SoundCloud, it's on YouTube, it's on MMA Oddsbreaker. Check it out. Appreciate you guys supporting me. And I'll be back later today to talk about UFC Sweden.